Welcome, Costa, Kate, to this Blue Talk in Segovia. We are here for the Hay Festival, and you've been kind enough also to give this Blue Talk with LinkedIn and IE University. But I wonder, how did you two meet? Because there's a big connection here, no, between artist, a scientist that is an artist as well.
We met through a Russian friend in London because I was doing this project to do with home and identity with refugees, which brought me to meet hundreds of people all over the world who were involved in the refugee crisis, diplomats and doctors and refugees and refugees of all sorts. And this person in particular was living in London, and I was having a bit of an existential crisis, looking for the truth, because part of the conclusion of this tent project was that our life is what our thoughts make it. And so I was thinking, well, that's very interesting, but beneath that, there must be some actual facts, not just our perception of reality, but there must be some things that are real and true. So I started to go around meeting scientists. So I went to the CERN in Geneva and spent some time with the theoretical physicists who were there at the particle collider. And then I went to the seed bank and I went to talk to lots of different mathematicians and I don't know what. And then this girl said, oh, you should meet Kostya because he's interested in art and he might be interested in staying up all night drinking illegally imported Crimean wine, talking about what does life mean, whatever. And so we met, I don't know what, like 5 or 6 years ago?
Yes, something like that. Yeah.
And then he was at the University of Manchester and I was commissioned to do a project in Manchester. And so I was like, why don't you come and do it with me? And so then we started working together almost immediately and then it turned into this Everything is Connected project, which we're doing all over the world.
Yeah, so I mean, yesterday here in Segovia, I really loved it, to be honest, no? Seeing all these sheep, 400 sheep in the center of the city. To be honest, I was wondering, what were you doing?
I think first of all, it's really good that you're wondering what is going on, because that's what the big project Everything is Connected is about, really, to make people think and to make people feel responsible for their actions, but also for things happening not only in their own house, in their family, but beyond, globally, and feel people interconnected between themselves.
And we wrote yes and no on the sheet. And so we were illustrating, partly unification theory, which is this physics theory that Kostya can talk about, but also that we're all brothers, that we're all the same, and that each of us is worth the same, whether or not we agree or don't on superficial differences, really. It's a project about our fundamental core values and inviting people to think about these things. So all of the work that we do with this Everything is Connected project is just inviting people to ask themselves questions and to go home and think about who they'd like to be in society and how do they want to commit to their family, to their community, to the environment. And so these sheep are kind of an analogy for us, I guess.
And so we brought those beautiful Castilian sheep to the center of Segovia. They were painted yes and no, because tomorrow it will be, or maybe the day after tomorrow it will be raining, and then those yes and no will disappear, and then underneath that it's just the same shape. And we try to tell people that maybe we need to dig a little bit deeper into our souls and find those nodes, those characters which connect us, rather than focusing on the superficial differences which take us apart.
That's actually very interesting, very relevant in the world that we live in, no? Because we, on the one hand, are super connected through technology, and we are able to see each other instantly, both someone that is in Europe with someone that is in China. But at the same time, we are all painted with our yeses and nos, and we believe them to be a difference.
But another thing that we're really interested in is education. No? And part of the thing that I think, anyway, as the mother of 3 children, is that the way that we're going to build a better society is by inviting people to ask better questions, almost. And so it's really interesting that you, for example, have your university, which is flourishing and doing so well, and you bring together. You're a very good illustration, in a way, of our like everything is connected project, because you're connecting students from all over the world in your faculty and bringing them together. And I understand that you have a very good scholarship program.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, actually one of our key values is diversity, no? Because in academia, I think there's a thought that that students come to learn content, and for me, I'm not sure, no, but for me, you come to university to experience something. It's a lifetime that. It's not just about learning, it's also about meeting people. But you said before, your project is about what does it mean to be a human being. And by the way, for an artist to really try to understand life in a way in which you engage with a Nobel Prize in physics and try to understand it from a scientific side is absolutely amazing. What are your thoughts behind it?
Well, it's still this thing about how everything is connected. So when we started to talk, and I was talking about my perhaps very sort of spiritual side of how I see things, and then Kostya was talking to me about the material world, really. What are we all formed of? How are we connected to one another through the natural world and through the world of all of these matters that I never really understood at school. And so for me, it was a revelation, and it taught me a lot about putting our human experience into a broader context of the universe. And I found it really inspiring, and it made me feel more brave to know how small and insignificant my existence is, and that what I do in the big scheme of things is of very little consequence. And so therefore, I might as well be brave and fully committed to what I'm doing, because it doesn't really matter very much. Do you know? And so that in turn also made me feel more engaged as a human being with the world around me as an artist, and trying to get these ideas and thoughts across through artistic work is really complicated and difficult challenge, and really interesting. And so that's why we do this project together, because we're always kind of finding a new idea and a new way to illustrate these questions that we're trying to invite people to think about the nature of our existence, wouldn't you say?
Yes, that's it's very much true, and of course, being a physicist, we don't really talk about those spiritual connections, which is probably wrong, because we live in the same field of information, and so we get the same triggers through different sources of information which stimulate our brain, and then surprisingly we get to very similar results. And then maybe if we just produce those triggers in more coherent manner and bring it closer to the core values, we can amplify this communal feelings and understanding that our actions actually have consequences much more globally than we think.
Also, we really like about this project, I got to say, all the people that we meet. Like, it's really nice to meet you, and it's really nice. Yesterday and the day before, we spent 2 days with these shepherds. Yes. In the plains of Castile, and we were talking with them, all the time for 2 days about their life and the songs they sing to the sheep, and what's it like being a sheep farmer, and so like the guy who I suppose we shouldn't name, who swears so creatively, non-stop. We were really dazzled by his swearing.
The Spanish language is great for swearing.
Well, it's another idea for a course here.
But he was talking about, he and Raphael, the shepherd, they were talking about, we were saying actually that this guy, Rafael Montes, should come and talk at your university about his life, because he started out with 2 sheep and now he's got 1,500 and and he was explaining how he came to have this successful life by doing what he likes and by doing what he loves and by being completely committed to his profession as a shepherd. And so he's been phenomenally successful, and it was amazing seeing him yesterday. He was the master of these plains of the Castile, walking around. It's like there's no one else, and there's him and his sheep, and he's a happy man. And that's what you want for your students, right?
And not just that, the world that we live in is also, forgetting about the connection with nature in a way which is astonishing, because everybody's in their cities, probably in their apartments, and they have big beliefs, of what nature should be, but with not really experimenting in nature, without not really going and walking with a shepherd or going and walking with someone in a very small village that works in the countryside, but then there's that, big judgment of how things should be working, and there's no connection with nature, And so I think also talking about Montes, that would be great, here in Segovia with all his sheep, and for our students, obviously, to go and experiment that and have a conversation with him and trying to understand and smell and touch and feel what's going on. I think it's actually an amazing experience.
This sort of disruptive experience is great, I think. Like we were talking at breakfast about how I went to an all-girls school in England, and we had this geography teacher who said one day, she was kind of looking at us all, and she said, but there's no point in teaching you all this stuff if you're not independent. And so she took us all down, and for the rest of the half of the term, we learned about car mechanics. And so we learned how to change a wheel and how to change fan belts and, all of these things, because she was like, this is part of life. You have to be a fully functional, independent member of society. You don't have to be asking people for things and it's just as important. And it's just as important to value the mechanic as the clever entrepreneur or the guy who's got this special gift in science. We're all connected. We're all we're all worth the same.
Costa, I mean, there's something you said before, no? We are what our thoughts make us. Being someone that is so knowledgeable about everything that covers our space, you still have, I guess, or still have, or I mean, you have the answers to many of the questions probably that we don't even realize, but probably you have more questions than the rest, no? And this for me is very existential, no? Because before we were talking about how little we are, how insignificant some way we are, and there's an existential question there that I wonder how you manage the creation. What is this? This is a cosmic accident.
Well, it is indeed the feeling which follows me all my life, and I still remember from my university. I graduated from a tiny boutique university back in Russia, and the exams there would be not just exams, but it would be like a long conversation with the professor, and you go there and you think that you know everything, and the typical exam consists of two parts. First, the professor just thrush you completely and just explains that you know nothing completely, and then you get terribly disappointed. But then in the second part of the exam, you just he or she would just help you to work it out, and then you get out of this after half a day of just working there, just thinking, oh, now I do understand something. And that's frankly, the more I work in science, the stronger is the feeling that the depths of knowledge which we still didn't reach is really huge. So it's we still need to dig deeper and deeper and deeper, and this feeling gets stronger with time rather than getting weaker. Sometimes it is scary, and then you just realize that, well, probably not in my lifetime, but then it's still encouraging that you do know that humanity as a whole will eventually get there. It just makes you proud, but then it tells you that you don't really own all this knowledge. It is part of humanity, and there will be more scientists coming later who would do their parts in bringing the understanding of those missing parts. And it's as I said, a bit maybe disappointing on the personal level, but then but then you feel connection to the rest of the humanity.
Part of the thing that's really interesting about hanging out with Kostya doing this project is that Kostya is always asking these big questions in which lead to such answers that he has to invent new languages to write down the thoughts, because they're in new fields of science that haven't existed yet, I mean, which is really fascinating, you know?
Is about creating a language. So mathematics is, of course, the language of science, but within mathematics, we create many new substances, many new language, and invent words or new languages entirely to describe our knowledge in the best possible way.
Yeah. So his questions are so intricate and at the frontier of thinking that the answers require the invention of new languages, which is really, really interesting as an artist, because I also love looking at languages and communication. And so, and it's really reassuring also to get back to the thing about everything being connected, but that at the end of all questions, there's just more questions. And so even science can't bring us to any one particular perfectly defined truth, no? And so like, I get really upset sometimes because you're like, okay, so at the end of that, at the end of that, at the end of that, and then Kostya's like, well, at the end of that, we don't know. Do you know? You're like, like nobody knows, do you know? And so that's a bit how we know that our life is what our thoughts make it. Because if nobody really, really knows, then we might as well make a decision and live life that way, you know, and be completely committed to that.
I wanted to add that you see, artists, they create languages all the time as well. So you go from classicism to Renaissance, and it's basically new languages created all the time. In the 20th century, we had so many new languages created, from Impressionism to abstract painting. And what really surprises me that all those languages, they're usually created by 1, 2, 3, 10 people, 10 artists working together, but they become universally accepted and understandable by everyone.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you and me, we can go now and create a code and create a language which would no one understand, and people do it to send secret messages. But if it is through art, somehow, for some reason, it is understandable for everyone. And of course, Mana creating Impressionism, they didn't think about being understandable. They just create a new language which helps them to express themselves. But surprisingly, it is being understandable by everyone.
So besides being able to speak the most difficult languages through mathematics or through the scientific language, at the end, art is probably one of the most comprehensible languages, and it's able to explain.
I wouldn't really say so. I'd say it's just all about communication. And I think people communicate, everybody is really an artist. There's this really interesting Viennese philosopher called Alois Rico, I don't know if you've read, and he sort of takes the air out of the whole kind of thing about being an artist by just saying, look, the thing that's important is that the plant fully expresses its plantness, you know, and the tendrils of a vine curling around the barricades of a park aren't really much more amazing than the work of Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci is just being himself, you know, and so that would be the purpose of a lot of questions and education and all of these things is that you fully express you begin to know yourself, and then you can fully express who you are by doing whatever it is that you're best at, which is back to education and the invitation to people of asking questions. And we were saying again this morning about communication. If you love your child, but you can't communicate that love effectively to that child, it's almost as if it doesn't really matter if you love that child or not. And so I think it's really great that's why we're doing this project and why we're really happy to see you doing this wonderful work at your university, because it's all about self-knowledge, serving society and communicating really in a way, no?
And art is a great communication tool. It's true. I mean, we don't know how where it will take us, because how our art is developing, it just gets into probably more efficient or ways of communication. I'm a bit worried that at a certain moment we'll just have wires linking our brains, so you just avoid the media of the canvas or the shape. So you just communicate ideas directly. Art is only a medium, and communication is really between people. So it's between your thoughts and the thoughts of people to whom you want to bring the message.
Yeah. One last question. You studied Chinese, and you are a big fan of Chinese art tradition. You're also a fan of Chinese art tradition, but at the same time, you are making a connection between the past, the tradition, with the modern world, with the future. No, how is that sense of connecting that tradition with the future?
Well, I would say we use it as tools, and we try to remember that our task, our goal is to communicate to people and to make them self-aware and make the world a little bit of a better place as much as we can. And art is very, very powerful tool. Somehow, for some reason, it's universally understood. So there is a beautiful paper by Eugene Wigner about the unreasonable effectiveness of mathematics for the description of natural phenomena. So we don't know why mathematics is so efficient. Same you can say about art. It's unreasonable effectiveness of art to communicate very, very complex ideas. So of course we could have just chosen a way of going around and preaching at churches, but I think it's communication through art is much more powerful, and in that sense, people knew this centuries ago, so they just use this tool, and I don't think that we invent something terribly new. It's for me, art is a one building, and people just use different rooms, but in fact, it is a really uniform and unified structure.
But I think also it's really important art and architecture, like nature, and it's a thing that's really nice here is how beautiful this is. And I think it's my experience at university was that it was wonderful to learn in a really incredibly beautiful environment. If you're in a beautiful library, you're going to kind of be all excited about your book in a way that you might not perhaps feel if you're, I don't know what, sort of in the motorway cafe.
but see, art is not only about being beautiful. It's about completeness. It's about style. So it was amazing experience yesterday, just walking through the fields of Castilian, and probably the most vivid memory from yesterday is to see Segovia with all these yellow, the sandstone colors blending to the golden fields of Castile. It's really it's amazing experience with the noise from the bells of the ship and swearing of the shepherd.
I guess, yeah, it's beautiful to be here. But when you were talking about the library, I mean, what I'm seeing from you too is that you have such beautiful minds inside you that it doesn't matter where you are. I mean, all these thoughts that you're sharing with us today invites me to think that in your mind everything is like Segovia here, and you don't need to be anywhere because in your mind you're already, generating those landscapes. So, I mean, congratulations! It has been an amazing conversation to be honest. I learned a lot.
It's true and not true. So it always takes two for tango, right? So I'm surprised. Maybe I shouldn't be surprised that all our ideas, and we have hours. We just talk with Kate for hours for any new project, and then they are received well by so many people across the globe. So which tells you that those ideas are not only in our minds; they are quite universal.
Absolutely. So thank you very much for your time, for being here this morning.
Thank you.
And we hope to have you in Segovia again and again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.